work there. And I think the one thing we need to realize when we talk about Mississippi State and the job at Mississippi State, the coaches that are going to be up for that job, it is going to be a better payday for them. Obviously, you're going to make a lot of money, but is it a necessarily a better situation from the win loss column? I don't know. I would lean no. You've got an SEC that is getting tougher and tougher. To every direction of you, there are better schools. Even within your own state, you are having a tough time competing with Lane Kiffin and Old Miss. You've got Georgia, you got LSU, you've got Alabama, you now got Texas and Oklahoma coming into the conference. Like you have these ginormous programs. And I think in order for Mississippi State to be successful in their coaching hire, they need to look backwards and understand what worked for them in the style that worked for them. And that style was not trying to be a Georgia or an Alabama, which Arnett was trying to do. Arnett failed to realize that he took over because of some really unfortunate circumstances with Leach passing and them wanting to kind of keep the program together. And this was a program built for the air raid offense. It was recruited for that purpose because the idea was we got to throw a curveball, something off speed in this SEC conference. And Arnett said, screw that. We're going to be a power football team. We're going to sort of try to build this thing like the juggernauts in the SEC. And you can't do that at Mississippi State. Before Dan Mullen showed up, Mississippi State was sort of a bottom feeder in the SEC. And Dan Mullen shows up. He does a good job of getting talent in the door, but he also throws some off speed pitches. He's not trying to throw a 90-mile-per-hour fastball like Alabama and Georgia. He's doing something a little creative. You got to plan for that game specifically when you play Mississippi State, and that was successful. And then you move to Leach, who does the same thing. If Dan Mullins is a curveball, Leach is a knuckleball, and you gotta prepare a little differently for that. I think that's what you got to do here. You got to look towards the past. You can't go out and get a guy, like a defensive-minded coach, unless they're going to be really open to innovative offenses. You can't go get a guy who's used to winning with good talent. I think obviously the first call is Dan Mullen to see if you can get him off the TV circuit, which rumor is he really is enjoying that lifestyle right now and not having to grind like you have to grind in college football and sort of being a family man and being on TV. And he's enjoying the lifestyle. So not saying it's not impossible to get him, but it's probably going to be pretty hard. I think then you start to look outwards, and there's a lot of names that have been talked about. I think there's a pretty good list of stuff. You look at guys like Willie Fritz at Tulane. He's in the older part of his career. This would kind of be his big payday, and then he's going to probably be there till you either choose to fire him or he chooses to retire. I think he could be an option. I think Jamie Caldwell at Liberty is probably the option because this is a guy who is used to winning with lesser talent and winning in unique ways. He did it at Coastal and building that program there. He's now doing it at Liberty. He is the kind of guy that a Mississippi State needs. A guy who's going to come in and understand, I'm not going to be able to compete with the big fish in getting that type of talent. I may get a couple guys here and there. We have money, we have resources. So the roster isn't going to be bare bones, but I have to work with what I got. And I got to present something that is different to what the rest of the SEC is presenting. I think he could be a great fit there. I think you look at a guy like Jeff Taylor or Tyler over at USTA. Now he's apparently interviewing for the Texas A&M job. They're going to have more money than you are. But if he's not taking that job, he could be nice. I think ironically, Sean Lewis, had he stayed at Kent State, would have been in the conversation here because what he was doing at Kent State was pretty remarkable when you take a look at the Kent State program and where it is in the pecking order and what he was getting out of there. But his stock has taken a ding with what's going on in Colorado and his inability to find the type of success they want. Not to say he's necessarily a bad coach, but there are certainly question marks about his ability. Lance Leipold is obviously, I think, the best option. But Lance has been pretty open about wanting to basically die at Kansas. And you love that energy from your head coach. You want that energy in your head coach if you're Kansas. The program is really excited. You've got Daniels returning next year. I don't think they're going to be able to pry him away, but it's worth the phone call. It's worth the hey, we're willing to offer you X amount of dollars if you want to come here. It's going to be a tougher sell because his path to success in the coming years is getting easier at Kansas within the Big 12. but he's a guy that would be really nice. So I think the objective here is to look towards your past and look towards what's worked there. And it is that coach that understands they're not going to have the best players. They can't just come in and try to throw heat all day. They got to throw some off speed pitches. And I think that's a pretty decent list of guys. I think all those guys are going to get phone calls. I think it obviously starts with Dan Mullins up front and trying to see if you can lure him back. And then if you can't, I think Caldwell at Liberty's probably going to be the guy that you put a lot of your chips in for. I like Fritz at Tulane. I think you could definitely pry him away. It's just whether or not you want to go that route, because this is kind of going to be his probably last contract in college football. If you pick him. So it'll be interesting to see that shake up. Texas A&M becomes a very interesting question. There's a lot of coaches names flying around, as there should be. Everybody's going to be getting a call from Texas A&M. They have the money, clearly. They just bought out Jimbo's contract for $76